You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This podcast is brought to you by the Oklahoma Beef Council on behalf of Oklahoma's 50,000 beef farming and ranching families. We are working hard every day to bring high quality beef to your table. To learn more, visit oklabeef.org, linked below. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. And let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Today we are in the northwestern part of Oklahoma. I have never been up here before, and I'm glad I actually came up here because I think a lot of people probably don't make it out this way unless they have a reason to, right? And a lot of people kind of probably, stay around Oklahoma City, go up and down I-35. But we should explore the corners of the state because they are beautiful. I am in Buffalo, Oklahoma today, or close to it. My guest is Tom Fanning, who has Buffalo Feeders, a family business. We're going to talk a little bit about animal care. Thanks to the Oklahoma Beef Council, which brought us together today. Talk a little bit about the cattle industry. And I mean, driving up here, you don't see much until you come over the hill, and then you see your entire operation. You're like, okay, this is a pretty big deal around here. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm excited to dive into the story, around the cow business. But before we do, generally the role, the way this podcast goes is we talk a little bit about you and kind of how you get here today. So, Tom, thanks for inviting us into your office and up here to your business. But let's start with, going way back. You're born and raised in Oklahoma?
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you for coming up and driving all the way out here. It's a nice 3-hour drive early in the morning, and you picked the right time of day to come out. So
definitely, yeah.
Before the wind picks up and the dust starts blowing. So, my name is Tom Fanning. I'm the manager here at Buffalo Feeders. I was born and raised about 30 miles from here in a small town called May. Went to school in a little town called Fort Supply. Graduated high school in 1983. Went to Oklahoma State with a degree in Ag Econ. While I was in college, I had enlisted in the Army Reserves. So I went to basic training the day after graduated high school and got back the day before college started. So had a good summer of getting in shape, and so spent a lot of time doing military things and and like that during my summer breaks from college, and graduated in '87. Went on active duty in the military as a lieutenant in the infantry. Was at Fort Benning, Georgia for quite a while. Went to airborne school, ranger school. After that, I was in Europe in the 2nd of the 4th Infantry, where we guarded the Pershing II mobile nuclear warheads. During the build-up to the first Gulf War, all of those things that were going on there was the deactivation of the Pershing II nuke missiles. We guarded the removal of chemical weapons out of Europe, and anyway, transferred back to the Fort Benning, Georgia again, and was transferring out of the military. Was an infantry captain at that time. Got a master's degree at Troy State University in Troy, Alabama, in management, and then went to work for Cargill in 1992. I failed to mention that I got married in 1990 to Michelle, who's my wife, and so this will be our 33rd anniversary this week.
That's sweet. Congrats.
Yeah. We have 3 children, Emily Shuping, Jake Fanning, and Lane Fanning, and then we have 2 granddaughters, Ellis Shuping and Jolie Fanning. So we're most excited about the 2 granddaughters.
Yeah, no doubt. That's that's exciting, right? To have you get to be grandparents and spoil the grandkids.
That's right. It's the best job I've had so far.
Yeah, super. So growing up in May, small town.
Very small town, 40 people, no school.
Naturally, agriculture is just part of the town and part of family, and that's all you know growing up.
Yeah, I grew up on a very small farm, alfalfa, some cattle, some wheat, and was very involved in the Future Farmers of America in high school, and so agriculture wasn't. It was basically where we lived and what we did. It was kind of in our DNA, I guess you would say, and so. Doing a lot of things in the military, I knew that my career, I wanted to get back into agriculture. Mm-hmm. I didn't exactly know where that was going to be or what that was going to be at the time, but the process of figuring that out brought me to the cattle industry through Cargill, where I was in Texas Panhandle for about 9 years. Okay. Before I came to Buffalo.
Yeah. So Cargill is kind of similar business?
Yeah, Cargill, cattle feeders at the time. Cargill's one of the largest privately owned companies in the United States, but they had a division that was called Caprock Industries, which was a cattle feeding business, and that's where I went to work in their management team at several feed yards, and basically learned my skill set that I have today.
Yeah. So when you're in high school, then you're growing up, small town, you're playing every sport, multiple things. You're doing everything because you need to do everything because they need people as well, right?
Well, there was only 8 of us in my senior class. Yeah. So there, if you didn't participate in everything, there wasn't enough people. Yeah. So the good news is you got to start on every basketball or sports team that you were on. The unfortunate part was we wasn't really that good. But we got to participate, and we were in all activities. Yeah. So yeah, it was great to grow up in a small town where everyone knows you, you know everyone, and your parents know what you did wrong before you got home. Mm-hmm. So it was a community raising all of us.
Yeah. So at that time, then you're growing up. Is just Oklahoma State that's that's the next path for you? That's the plan. There was no other university. It was like, okay, I grew up in agriculture. I want to be in the agriculture industry. Oklahoma State's generally the next place to go.
Right. Pretty much. I had two older brothers. Both had gone to Oklahoma State. One was in animal science business, and he is currently president of a bank locally in Woodward. And my other brother was a mechanical ag, which is kind of like an ag engineering degree. And so was very familiar with the university, had been there a lot of times visiting them and visiting the school, and it was my first and only choice.
Yeah. It's kind of probably nice to have older brothers in university already, going there, or like you've been familiar with it, so you're not, and obviously you're the youngest, right? So you're kind of like the baby as well.
That's right.
Right? They got to take care of you.
How'd you figure that out?
I'm the oldest, so I have a younger brother. I know exactly how that goes.
Yeah, so it was nice to be that first day on campus as a freshman. You're not intimidated. You don't know. You've already been there, over the years, many, many times. And that was one of the things that I tried to do with my children is get them out and have them experience a lot of things like that, so that first day they're on their own, they're not intimidated by the size and the scope of the university and the diversity of the people.
Yeah. What other than just ag econ, what else was focus at university? Did you have a good time?
Unfortunately, I had a very good time. We're not going to talk about my grade point average today. That was one of the things that is off limits on the podcast. But no, I was involved in a fraternity, and that gave me a opportunity to be involved in many things on campus. I was in student government organizations as the College of Ag senator and an ag ambassador to help prospective students and their parents, to show them around the university and the College of Ag. Involved in intramural sports and things like that. It was a very, very beneficial time for me to grow and learn a lot. And then, of course, I was in the Army's ROTC program, so I was involved in a lot of things going on there as well.
Yeah. What leads you to follow and go into the ROTC and the military side of things? Did your family that served as well?
Well, my grandfather had served, but it was an opportunity growing up it was an opportunity to help pay for school.
Okay.
Right. So the Army offered quite a few different benefits to signing and being in reserves, being in that. So I was able to help fund my college experience without loans.
Yeah. A great way to do it.
You have a debt. It's just to the government instead of to the bank.
You sign up for how many years
That's
you want
right.
to serve, right? I had the current Major General of the Oklahoma National Guard on recently, and he did the National Guard. They're all working people, right? It's amazing the resources that you have available to yourself if you, like you said, commit to however much time being in the reserves or being in the National Guard. And it's not an easy thing to do, right? If you get called up, then you've kind of got to go.
That's
wherever
right.
it is. But it's a great way to get education help and see the world as well.
I would say it served me in my my role here. Mm-hmm. Probably the best leadership training through the military, through ROTC, through my classes there, and then on further into the military, and some of the more challenging schools. It definitely will help you set apart from your peer group.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
There's some days that I miss it a lot, and then I remember all of the things that I don't miss, and sometimes you get nostalgic, right?
Yeah.
And you only remember the good days. So yeah,
it's probably
I miss
similar,
that.
It's probably similar to if you've grown up on a farm at a young age, right? You're up at very early in the morning. You probably just have in the military, you just have someone shouting at you earlier in the morning than maybe you do on a farm.
That's and they're not related to you.
Yes.
So no, that was being young and wanting to go see a lot of places, and being from a very small community in Northwest Oklahoma, it was a great opportunity to see the world.
Yeah. So you have you go through your years at Oklahoma State, and you're doing the ROTC thing. You go into the reserves, but then you, instead of going into business straight away, you decide to follow down the military path a bit further. Tell me about that.
Right. So it was in the late '80s, graduating, and there was slightly a small economic crisis going on in the United States, and ground zero of that would have been Oklahoma, and so the job opportunities were not abundant in the late '80s, and so it was a great opportunity to number one, serve, number two, do something that's hard with a group of people that you like, and so you really build a team when you're going through hard things together, and that was one of the things that when you look back and remember the good days, it was the people that you were with and that you were going through extreme challenges with, that you look back at those times and those were good days.
Yeah, that's it's like you just said, it's great leadership training, right? Because there's so many things that you can translate to what you do now, being around a great group of people. And I know just from some research and a video that Nikki sent to me was that you got people who've been working here for 25, 30 years, and they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't enjoy the people they worked around.
Right. So, you said something about family, and this really is a family here. We have several, we have 3 generations of family members that are working here right now today in different levels of leadership. Yeah. A grandfather that's one of our lead maintenance guys, and his grandson, who's one of our new management training employees that's just graduated from college, and we all take pride in what we do every day, and we have a great team, and it shows by the results that they get.
Yeah. Before we dive into more of the business today, tell me about Europe. I'm going to Europe as a young military guy, right? To guard nuclear weapons and nuclear warheads.
Yeah, so
kind of stuff you hear about in movies, right? Not something you think you're actually going to do in person.
It was very interesting. I learned a little bit of German, so I was there when the wall came down.
Wow.
So, we were at the time West Germany, and I was in the southern part of West Germany. Heilbronn, Ulm is beautiful. The Danube River ran through the town that I lived in. I did learn that protesters are there everywhere, and back in the day, we had protesters at the nuke sites every Friday and Saturday night, and also learned that they were all salaried, paid protesters, that was their job, was to come and protest. So, that what we see today that's going on in the world has been going on for a long time. It's just social media has raised the focus of it, where we're all more aware of some of those things.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience. I made some friends with some German folks, and one of my lieutenant buddies and I, we coached German American football. So we had 13, 14, 15-year-old German boys playing American football, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So getting involved in the community there was a little different, because there was a little bit of a language barrier, and then trying to tell a German young man in English and broken German a play in football. So we figured that out with flashcards. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
My wife and I got married in 90, and our first 6 months of marriage was my last 6 months in Germany.
Oh, okay.
So that was a lot of fun to be over there together, away from family, and obviously we had to rely on each other because neither one of us spoke good enough German to to get around in the community very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to see, like, it's nice you're working, you're serving, but also, you've got your other half there, right, there with you. It would have been a lot harder if she was here for the first 6 months of marriage.
That's right. That would have been a lot harder.
Yeah.
So it was great.
You were in the airborne at that time, or still in kind of infantry rangers?
So I had gone through the airborne school and the ranger school.
Yeah.
I served in the 2nd or the 4th Infantry.
Okay.
So that was an infantry company battalion that guarded the Pershing II nuclear warhead. So we were attached to the infantry unit attached to provide security.
Did you have kind of the leadership around you that time? Did anyone kind of say, "Hey, I think you're good at this. You should," what do you think about a career in the military instead of, going back into the ag world?
Yeah, I absolutely did. And, it was just more of a family decision of, it's a great place to be when you're single. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot harder place to be when you're married and wanting to start a family. So I think it was more of a family decision to leave the military.
Sure. And then you mentioned I guess you go into doing a master's when you come back.
Right.
What leads you to doing a master's?
It was a good transition to get your mind out of the day-to-day government military terminologies and to transition into civilian life. And so that's what I chose to do to try to just kind of get my mindset back into everyday civilian thought processes.
Yeah. Are you working at Cargill while you do your master's?
No, sir. I'm still in the military.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was an executive officer of a basic training unit at the time, and had a lot of free time. Yeah. Compared to the line unit that I'd served on in Europe, and so I chose to fill that free time with college courses.
Right, and then just the plan is I'm going to get a degree in Master's in Management that's going to better,
Right, it'll give me a little bit broader perspective and more opportunity, hopefully. So. Yeah.
Do you have any, while this is all going on, do you have any kind of hobbies or interests that are centered around the ag world at that time? Do you always kind of have your toe in the water, or is it?
No, I was totally out of all of that. But there was no opportunities for me to be involved in that where I was at in Germany or Georgia. I was totally immersed in the military. So.
Got you. So, let's fast forward a little bit then. So you do your master's, you go to Cargill, you have your time there, and then the opportunity comes up for you to come back to Oklahoma. Yeah. How does that opportunity come about?
So it was after 9/11, and we had decided as a family we wanted to move back from the Texas Panhandle into the area where we had both grown up. My wife and I both grew up in the same area, and we wanted to be able to raise our family where they could be able to know their grandparents and be in a closer to home. And so we moved back here, and then an opportunity opened up at Buffalo Feeders. And, 21 years later, I'm still here.
Did you know much about this place growing up, or was it on?
Growing up, no. Okay. As I became immersed in the cattle feeding business, I became much more aware of it, and had been here a couple of times just visiting the feed yard, prior to coming to work here.
Yeah. What kind of piques your interest around just the cattle feeding business? Is it like the health side, the meat side? I mean, it's quite a big operation.
So, the business side of the economic side of it is, I guess, where what draws me in, because there's the cattle market. There's the purchasing of the cattle. There's the selling of the cattle. There's the commodities, the buying of the commodities, the risk management involved in the cattle and the commodities. The finance side of it, because we finance cattle, we finance feed. It's every aspect of ag economics and finance and animal health and nutrition and maintenance and engineering and technology. It all comes together in a feed yard. So if there's one of those areas that you're more suited or you feel more comfortable in, you can still be successful in a feed yard. There's just every day something new. It's a very dynamic business. And if you think you have it figured out, the weather will change your mind. And it will provide challenges for you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, it sounds back to kind of what you said earlier about, doing something hard with people that you like.
yeah.
Obviously, this isn't as hard physically as going, being in the military. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But mentally and logistically, it sounds a lot like it.
Yeah, there's days,
Yeah.
right? There's days. So when winter weather comes in, we'll go to the grocery store, buy food for the week, and everyone will stay here and care for the cattle, get the cattle fed, get the roads cleaned, the pens cleaned. I've spent a lot of nights away from home, taking care of the cattle at the feed yard versus being at home in a nice, warm, comfortable bed. But that's just what we do, and that's what you have to do. But when you have a good team of people that are all doing everything they can to work together to get it done, that's those are again, they're not good memories the day you're making them, but a year later they're fond memories.
Yeah. Yeah, those ice storms are not fun,
No,
right?
no, there's nothing fun about it. But we laugh now about the 2 a.m. Trying to get a loader unstuck that's stuck on the highway. So
Yeah.
in a snow bank.
Yeah, I'm sure that's at the time it's you're kind of cussing at the world, I guess, and then, and then years later you just like remember that. Yeah, we got through that. That was awesome.
Yeah, those. I've one year we had a storm right before Christmas, and I remember it was the third day. Hadn't had a shower and hadn't been home, but getting finished at the feed yard and making it to the church to meet my family, and taking all of my overalls and boots off outside and going in for the Christmas Eve service, and sitting a long ways away from everyone because I smelled pretty bad.
But you made it.
But we made it.
Yeah. So for people listening who probably don't have any idea, like myself, of logistically and just how a feed business works, like, go into as much detail as, like, how would you explain to people how this business works, how it makes money, how it sustains itself?
So primarily we are a custom feed yard. So most of the cattle here are owned by customers throughout the United States. So this is basically a 5-star resort for cattle.
Okay.
So we provide care, feed, and marketing services for those customers. So when I'll just give you an example. A set of cattle would come in today from, like, I got a cattle from a ranch down by Houston, Texas this week. and they will come in, and we will weigh them as a group, and then we will assign them a lot number and an individual number. We will weigh them all individually. We will give them some vaccines that will help their immune system while they're through this the stress of changing from a grass grazing environment to a feed yard environment. And then we will slowly transition them from a grass-based diet to a starch-based diet over 21 to 28 days, slowly, as the gut biome in that animal has to change from a cellulose digesting bacteria to a starch digesting bacteria. And we do that with some direct fed microbials, which would be like taking a probiotic. So that helps the animal naturally transition their gut. And we've found that if you can keep the gut healthy, the rest of the animal stays healthy. So we spend a lot of time trying to focus on gut health and preventing any disease. If we can prevent it, then we don't have to then doctor that animal and give it antibiotics. If one gets sick, and there will be occasionally an animal that gets sick, then we want to pull it from the pen and take it to our hospital and treat it. But those are very small numbers. We treat very few cattle, and when we do, we have strict protocols that we follow, both in cattle handling and product placement and product usage. Going back to our beef quality assurance program, and going back to the beef quality assurance program, we train on that. We train all of our employees. We also are audited, and we will be audited 3 different times this year by 3 different independent auditors, just to look at our procedures, our training, and just to ensure that we're doing the right things right.
Yeah, that's, maintaining the right standard, right? And then keeping that reputation that you are the right place for people to send, their cattle to.
Yeah. So back to the feed. We're a 30,000 head feed yard. So on any given day, we'll make about 850 to 900,000 pounds of feed, fresh every day. Each pen has a GPS location, and the feed truck has a GPS indicator, and so it knows where it's supposed to be. So we will feed each pen 3 times a day, each group of cattle. And we walk. Our cowboys walk each pen every day. We check for fresh water and fresh feed and any sickness or any issues and maintenance that needs to be done in that pen. And we do that 365 days a year. We have a great group of professionals that are out there looking after our cattle and doing our maintenance and making our feed and delivering our feed.
Yeah. How long are the animals here?
So an average, I would say 6 months.
Okay.
So depending on what they weigh coming in, and their breed and their sex, their quality, but on average about 180 days.
Yeah. Is there like a certain age limit they've got to get to, or a certain age before they can be sent to you? And then what's kind of like how do you guys fit into the process of middle of the road before they go to becoming steaks?
So depending on the producer, the cattle owner's operation, a lot of people, a lot of producers will take that stalker period where they will take that young 400 or 500 pound calf and it will be run on grass or wheat pasture, grass in the summertime, wheat pasture in the winter and spring. And when that grazing season is finished is when the cattle will be shipped to us. And so typically when they're coming in here, they're at 12 to 16 months of age. And then when they're going out, they're at 20 to 24 months, 25 months of age.
Gotcha. It's quite an operation, right? Like it's, when you mentioned technology earlier, I'm sure technology has just been a massive help with, in the time that you've been here, how things have evolved, with new technologies coming in and just being able to manage everything.
Right. So we are very detail oriented. We use a lot of statistics. We weigh every individual animal every time it goes through a chute, and then we will sort them based on their individual average daily gain and their marketing group. Today that we're doing a test where we've taken DNA on a group of cattle and we're sorting them based on a certain gene that we have identified that is a positive growth promotant versus a negative growth, and we're sorting those cattle, doing a test to see if that will line up with what we think it says in the research.
Yeah, is that something that kind of everybody does in your industry, or is that something? I mean, is there anything that you?
I would say no.
Out? No.
I would say it's a very small group that are doing the individual animal management, and then an even smaller group that's doing the DNA work.
Yeah. Is that just to just increase services for your customers, or does that also help further down the line as well?
It increases services for the customers, sure. but the bottom line is we're trying to lower the cost of gain, improve the conversion of the feed that we feed per pound of gain. So we're a more sustainable operation if we can feed less feed and produce more pounds of beef, which also translates into more profit for the customer. And then by doing a better job of sorting the cattle, we are improving their sales price when we're marketing those cattle. So we're lowering the cost of gain and improving the sales price. So we're gaining profits on both sides of that equation.
Yeah. And as you say that, like it's kind of a reminder to people listening that, you're a service to the customer that owns the animals, right?
That's right.
Like, a lot of people might think, I just have a job to do. I just need to feed the cattle and that's it, keep them healthy and then just pass them on down the line because I'm not going to gain the extra profit that the customer's going to gain when they go to sell that. But you guys look at it through a service perspective, and how the more care we do, the better service we provide, the better word gets around that people are going to send us our animals, and that's how we're going to make more money and sustain and grow. And
yeah,
it's a great model.
It's the more that we can do to help that customer, we are basically the knowledge center for the cattle industry and for everything that affects that animal from finance to risk management to health to nutrition to marketing for those customers throughout the United States. One of the great things economically for Oklahoma that a feed yard does is it takes customers that are from Florida or Texas or anywhere in the Southeast that own cattle. They're taking their investment dollars and bringing them to Oklahoma to add that value. So we're adding the economic impact of a feed yard in Oklahoma is about 10 to 15 times factor. So it's a huge impact. We're one of the largest employers in Northwest Oklahoma. And we're one of the largest non-governmental employers in this area. We'll have a $2 million payroll. And we'll have $120 or $130 million that will flow through the feed yard any given year just in cattle and grain and commodities. So it's a huge economic impact to the area.
Yeah. Just thinking of the amount of feed that you've got to get, right? Just to keep those things rolling. But also, the fact that, like you said, it's not just the animals. Like you have the vet that's on site. You've got, the trucks. It's everything, right? People don't think of just how wide the economic impact is. They might just think, oh, it's just cattle and feed, but there's a lot more that goes into it. Even just the mechanics to keep the tractors and tracks and trails going, or even just people that build in the feedlots and the pens and the material that comes from that. Like it's a massive impact.
Yeah, and there's one other thing that goes with feeding 850,000 pounds of feed. So we produce a lot of fertilizer.
Okay.
And so one of the things that is a benefit to our local farmers is they come and get the compost and spread it on their fields, which is, again, going back to the sustainability, is they're not having to buy fertilizer for their farms. They're able to use the feed yard waste and compost to go back onto their fields and to produce a better crop.
Yeah, again, I'm glad you said that, because I would never have thought of that, and people listening probably wouldn't either. So it's most people just don't even think about these places, right? They might pass them on the highway and just think, oh, cool, kind of smells funny. There's a lot of cattle in there.
Kind of smells funny, yeah.
Right? That's it,
Well, I was blessed with having poor sense of smell.
Great business, great place for you to be.
That's right.
With kind of related to the feedlots as well, is there? It's kind of logistically and just like the flow of things too, right? Yeah, it must be hard figuring out where we've got to get these cattle, in and out of places. And there's a lot of people here, a lot of cattle here as well. And it's like a giant game. It can be a giant game of Tetris. How do you work about kind of herding and getting everyone in the right place and just without, and you mentioned kind of disease, injuries, whatever it is, like, that's, people don't think of that either, thinking I've got to get, all these cattle, into a pen or to see the vet or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, how does that work?
So we have a good leadership group here that's has a lot of experience, and they every day that we're planning the next day and the next following day's work schedule. So when this group of animals comes in, we're determining what days things are going to be happening in their production process for the next 180 days. So we have this long range look on what's going to happen with that group of cattle. So we know, 100 days out, what day they're going to come back and get reweighed. We know when their feed schedule is going to be. So yeah, we have a good leadership team that schedules the work schedule every day. And so all of the employees at the end of the day know what the work schedule is going to look like for the next day.
Yeah.
And they know what the priorities are. And so we try to let people know not only what they're going to be doing, but why.
Yeah.
The why is what gets people bought into the program. If they understand why it's important that the job they're doing and how it fits into the whole process, they're bought into the team program.
As far as kind of related to that, as far as just feedlots around the country and just the general construction of the feedlots, do they all kind of follow the same model? Are they all kind of built similar, or is yours different to any others?
They're generally similar.
Sure.
I mean, a concrete bunk that the feed is delivered into. And then there's a concrete bunk apron where the cattle are standing, and that's just because that area has a lot more wear. We monitor how many square footage each animal has, so we want to make sure they have plenty of room. How many inches of bunk space each animal has, so they have lots of room to eat freely at any time they want to. But one of the things you'll notice when you look at cattle, whether they're in the pasture or in a feed yard, they're a herding animal, and they feel more comfortable when they're close to each other. And that's when you see one off by itself, that's an indication that you need to check that animal because there may be something wrong with it. So when you come by a feed yard and you see, well, there's a lot of cattle standing in one area, it's not because it's a small area, it's because they're more comfortable being next to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? And yeah, you're right. When you see someone off on its own, that's generally not a good sign.
It's definitely something to be checked out, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen things just over the years that you've been here, like just the knowledge that you have, and everyone has because they've worked here, for so long. You see things and you think, hang on, something's not right here. Let's go figure it out.
Yeah, that's a kind of management by exception, right? So that's one of the things that you learn is you're not looking for everything that's right. You're looking for that thing that sticks out that's not. And so when I had a cowboy that taught me one time when I first started that he said, if that calf looks like he feels worse than you do, then he needs to be looked at. So he'd had a bad night the night before. So
yeah. Do you have to worry about kind of like breeding season, calving season? Like, do you have to take care of any of that stuff, or do you don't have to worry about that? So, because that could be a major.
It could be a major problem, and so we sonogram every female, every heifer that comes into the feed yard, and we don't accept any bred heifers. Yeah. So we have over the years we've learned that. Through some research studies that the economic impact of having a bred female coming into the feed yard, number one, the calving issues can be difficult. Yeah. And number two, they're losing weight, they're not performing economically. So, we take those and go back to the sale barn with those heifers and let them go back out into the other part of the business stream.
Yeah, it's that just one thing that came to mind. Like that could be I'm thinking of just bad weather, ice storms generally around calving season.
And the spring is a heavy part of calving season. Yeah. And so I tell you the being able to sonogram every individual that comes in, and our own crew does that. So we have our own trained sonogram team. And as we do that, it's reduced the workload on everyone because of the problems that come with heifer pregnancy and a calving in the feed yard.
Yeah. So, kind of moving to current day, what's kind of plans for the future? Plans to expand or just maintain, or how do you also keep keep at the front of the industry as well, and with technology and statistics and the other stuff you guys are using?
So we're constantly trying to improve, and we just finished about a $600,000 project that we completely tore out all of our shipping and receiving pens and rebuilt those where cattle flow and cattle care and employee care are all kind of the important parts. So when the cattle come in, there's no corners for them to catch a hip or to bruise themselves. So it improves carcass quality, and improves, reduces lameness. We also have it where the cattle flow more naturally from the pen to the truck, which reduces the stress on the cattle. It also reduces the stress on the employee trying to load that truck. We have also have that whole area under video surveillance, so we can we can count the cattle off the truck, we can count the cattle on the truck, and then we can use those video for training our employees on situations where they could improve how they handle the cattle.
Yeah. A lot of stuff goes into it.
Right.
So many things.
A project that we're working on in the future this summer, we're going to do a major mill remodel. That's going to be somewhere around a $5.5 million capital improvement project. And we're going to be kicking that off here in about 30 to 45 days. We've started some of the groundwork on that. We're going to be doubling our capacity for grain holding. So we'll be able to hold more grain. And at the same time, we're going to be putting in new steam flaking flakers that will reduce our energy usage by half and cut the time that we process grain or we run those rolls by about 60-70%. So we're going to be doing that project. We're also doing several research projects. I've got one working with Oklahoma State on their on a range cube on a range research project, comparing a beef dairy cross animal versus a traditional beef animal on range and then in the feed yard. Again, I told you we were working on a DNA project, on a sorting project now. So one of the things that we like to do is continue to try to strive to improve. If we're not able to improve in one area, then maybe we can improve the maintenance in that area. Maybe we can improve the employees' work life in that area. But we're always trying to look for ways to do what we do better for the cattle and better for the employee.
Yeah, it's like trying to be the Chick-fil-A of business, right? Just trying to be as God, I can't even think of the word, as efficient as possible.
Yeah, efficient and safe and sustainable.
Yeah.
And economically impactful.
Right.
So it's kind of a circle that we have to check all of those boxes, and and our crew, and they embrace the change. They look forward to it, and it's a great team.
Yeah. What's it like working alongside, Oklahoma State students and the school as well, the School of Agriculture, as being an alumni and a graduate? Yeah,
it keeps you young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Each year, the Stalker feeder class comes out to the feed yard, and we give a tour and get a lot of great questions from those students. We also have one of the ag leadership classes that come out every year, and Oklahoma Cattlemen's brings their young leadership group out. And, there's a lot of wide-ranging experiences. And what I want the students to understand is if they want to have a satisfying and be a very successful career, the cattle business is a great place to start. And if you're entrepreneurially oriented, it's a great place. And if you don't have a lot of resources, like not many people can go out and just buy a ranch and start ranching, right? But you can own a few cattle in a feed yard and start off small and start off slow and work into a really nice cattle business.
Yeah, there's plenty of those in this state as well, right?
That's right.
Which is great. Finishing up then, some fun questions. Other than being a grandparent, when you do have free time, what do you do?
My wife and I like to exercise and work out and run. We do a lot of we do 5Ks and 10Ks and half marathons and things like that.
Yeah.
And, we like to travel, and we, for the last 6 months, we like to hold granddaughters.
Right. Is running just something you took later in life, or just something that stuck with you because of the military?
I would say it was one of those bad habits that formed in the military and stuck with me. Yeah. So it's, the Beef Council promotes, has a thing called Team Beef, and I've been a part of it for quite a few years. My son is part of it now. He just ran the Oklahoma City half marathon this last couple weeks ago. My wife did as well, and it's a lot of fun when you have your team beef shirt on and you're out on a race, and you got somebody yelling at you, "Go beef, go beef!" So it's and it's a good way to just interact with folks that really don't have any idea what we do, and kind of share a little bit with them.
Yeah, I mean, to that exact point, right? Like, people could drive past this place and think, oh, it's sad all the cattle are in there together, right? Or it smells, that must be horrendous. But after sitting with you for an hour, it makes total sense. I get it. It generates, it is needed, And that's probably one of the tough things too that you guys fight, is the stigma, or just the people's perception when they have absolutely no idea, or they didn't grow up in the country, or they grew up in the city, or they're like me, they're from a completely different country, and the only thing that's big in the UK is sheep, and it's so expensive for us to eat it because we ship it out and then we sell it all around the world. So
I think education is the key to changing perceptions, right? And I think that I'm confident that if I could spend 20 or 30 minutes with anyone, they may not, they will completely understand what we do and how we do it and how we care for them, and that we're passionate about it, and that we love what we do. We love the cattle, and we love our employees and our customers, and that it's a sustainable, wholesome environment. And, one of the great byproducts of it is, we grow really, really great beef, and it tastes great. Yeah. And, my family, what I feed my family, I'd love to feed your family.
Yeah. To that point then, last question, what is the favorite cut of meat?
I have so many.
Which is such a hard question to answer.
But the ribeye cap steak, okay? So if you take the ribeye and that little round part of the meat on the top that kind of stretches in an oval is the most tender, flavorful piece of the ribeye. So next time you bite in a ribeye, look at the top, that little wide, round, oval, half-moon strip of meat on the top, and eat that first.
I love it. I'm going to have to do that. Tom, thanks so much for inviting us into your place of business. Thanks for having us up here. Every day is busy for you, so I appreciate you taking some time out and holding calls for an hour to share some stories and kind of educate everyone listening on the feed business. And let's have a good year, and go Pokes.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you all being here, and go Pokes.
For everyone listening, I'll post a link to the feeder business in the description, as well as some other awesome links so you can go check out, get some information, and go buy that ribeye and enjoy that cap steak. So sounds awesome. For people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit ChoctawCulturalCenter.com to plan your visit. This podcast is brought to you by the Oklahoma Beef Council on behalf of Oklahoma's 50,000 beef farming and ranching families. We are working hard every day to bring high-quality beef to your table. To learn more, visit oklabeef.org. That's oklabeef.org, linked below. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.